$5,000. That's what they said I owed for grass that was 2 inches too tall. When I ignored that ridiculous fine, the HOA president called the cops on me, convinced my criminal record would finally get me arrested and kicked out for good. What she didn't know was that I wasn't just her neighbor. I was the federal officer investigating the very crimes she'd been hiding behind her perfect lawn. It started when I moved into Sunset Palms, a quiet retirement community in Florida, where every blade of grass was trimmed to military precision. My name's Alex Thompson. On paper, I was a 35-year-old unemployed IT guy renting a small house and minding my own business. In reality, I was an undercover detective investigating a massive stolen prescription pill ring targeting elderly residents. The irony, I was posing as an ex-offender trying to rebuild my life because my sealed juvenile record made the cover believable. To everyone else, I was just the new guy with weird hours, expensive equipment, and a past people whispered about. Then there was her Barbara Martinez, HOA president, 45, ex-nurse, queen of control. She lived across the street in a pastel pink house that looked like a magazine cover. She walked around with a clipboard like she was the sheriff of suburbia. When I came home one night after a 12-hour surveillance shift, I found a bright yellow notice glued to my door. Grass height exceeds community standards measured 2.1 inches. Violation, fine $5,000. Additional $500 per day until corrected. I actually laughed. $5,000 for grass. Maybe next she'd fine me for breathing too loud. I crumpled the paper, tossed it in the trash, and told myself I had bigger things to worry about. But that was Barbara's first shot across the lawn. Over the next few days, I noticed her watching me from her window, jotting notes. I told myself she was just nosy until I saw something that made every cop instinct in me light up. One afternoon, she walked into Mrs. Johnson's house carrying a medical bag and that same fake smile she wore at HOA meetings. Mrs. Johnson was 78, diabetic, spent hundreds every month on medication. Through my blinds, I watched Barbara organize her pills, photograph bottles, count tablets. It looked more like inventory than kindness. Then she held up a bottle, shook her head. "These are expired, Mrs. Johnson. Dangerous to keep. I'll dispose of them for you." And she took them 30 pills worth $200 and replaced them with what looked like vitamins. Later that day, she was selling those same pills to another neighbor as generic replacements. That's when it hit me. Barbara wasn't just a power-tripping HOA Karen. She was running a black market pharmacy under the cover of community care. But before I could gather proof, she went on the offensive. Day 1, a $2,000 fine for lawn neglect. Day 2, $1,500 for improper garbage bin placement. Day 3, $1,000 for unauthorized vehicle parking. All of it fake, all of it designed to break me down. The neighbors started avoiding me. Barbara spread rumors. "He's got a criminal record, probably dealing drugs." The irony almost made me laugh. I was a cop investigating drugs being accused of the same thing by a woman stealing them. Still, the constant harassment got to me. One night I sat on my couch, surrounded by stacks of violation letters, and thought maybe she'd won. Maybe I should just pack up and leave. Maybe this whole mission wasn't worth it. I looked out at my dying patch of grass and whispered, maybe I really don't belong here. But then I remembered why I was there, to stop people like her from preying on the vulnerable. That thought pulled me back from quitting. If Barbara wanted a fight, I'd give her one. The next week she escalated. She called a community meeting to discuss my behavior. I knew what that meant, a public humiliation. When I arrived, half the neighborhood was there, some clutching her flyers, listing every supposed crime I'd committed. Barbara stood at the front, smug as ever. "Mr. Thompson has been violating community standards, conducting suspicious activity, and according to a background check, has a sealed criminal record." The room gasped. She smiled like a queen delivering a verdict. I stood up. "Yeah, I made mistakes when I was 19, but that record's sealed for a reason. What I haven't done is steal medicine from my neighbors." The tension shifted. A young teacher named Emily Smith jumped in. "Barbara, you fined him $15,000 for grass. That's abuse, not leadership." Then a real nurse, Jenny Davis, spoke. "Barbara, you can't give medical advice or handle prescriptions without a license. That's illegal." You could see Barbara's face crack. For the first time, the power she loved so much started slipping. After the meeting, she cornered me in the parking lot. Her voice was low sharp. "You're destroying these people's trust. Maybe you should leave before your past catches up with you." I stared back. "Was that a threat?" She smiled. "It's a warning." And that's when I knew she wasn't done with me yet. 2 days later, she invited the whole neighborhood to a potluck dinner. She even handed me a personal invitation, acting all sweet. Every instinct screamed trap, but I went anyway. Undercover rules: you show up, you observe. The food looked innocent enough. She hovered near me, smiling. "Try my family recipe seafood pasta. You'll love it. I'm allergic to shellfish badly." I hadn't told anyone, but Barbara had my rental application. She'd seen my medical file. Still, I played along. Pretended to eat, laughed, chatted. Slipped most of it into a napkin when she wasn't looking. 15 minutes later, she kept watching me, waiting for me to choke to swell up to die. I smiled back. "Delicious," I said. Her eyes flickered. Confusion, worry, then fear. She realized I wasn't dying. When I got home, I tested the pasta with a home allergy kit. Positive for concentrated shellfish extract. It wasn't contamination. It was attempted murder. I called my handler, Detective Sarah Martinez. "Barbara just tried to poison me. We're moving now." The next morning, Barbara played her final card. She called 911. "This is Barbara Martinez, HOA President. I need officers for a suspicious resident conducting surveillance on elderly neighbors. He has a criminal record, possible federal warrant." She thought she'd outsmart me, get me arrested, silenced, erased. When the patrol officers arrived, I cooperated completely. "Sure, officers, come on in." They ran my ID and everything changed. The database pinged a confidential notice: active undercover law enforcement. Contact federal office immediately. The cops looked at me, then each other. Outside, Barbara watched from her window, expecting to see handcuffs. Instead, she saw them, shaking my hand. That's when her whole world imploded. Because the call she made didn't expose me, it exposed her. The system linked her name to a federal database search, cross-checked her fingerprints, and flagged an alert. Possible match: Rebecca Foster, wanted, fugitive, multiple counts of elder abuse. Drug theft, homicide, escaped 2021. Barbara Martinez wasn't real. She was Rebecca Foster, a former nurse who'd already killed 3 elderly patients in Arizona by swapping their meds and selling the real ones. She'd changed her name, moved states, and rebuilt her empire under the HOA banner. The second the FBI confirmed it, the neighborhood turned into a crime scene. Agents swarmed Sunset Palms, while Rebecca shredded documents, flushed pills, and tried to run. She grabbed cash, fake IDs, her old nurse's kit. I watched from across the street as she loaded her SUV, her perfect composure cracking for the first time. For someone who spent years pretending to uphold order, she looked awfully small, surrounded by chaos. She tried to flee toward Miami, but it was already over. Highway patrol spotted her vehicle at a rest stop. She ditched it, switched to a motorcycle, changed clothes, but she couldn't outrun federal facial recognition. By dawn, a 15-man task force had her cornered at a back alley clinic she'd used before. When they stormed in, she didn't even resist. Just raised her hands and said quietly, 3 years of freedom, gone because of 2 inches of grass. Later, I stood before the same neighbors who once avoided me. "My name is Detective Alex Thompson. Barbara Martinez, your HOA president, is actually Rebecca Foster, a federal fugitive. She stole your medications, sold them online, and tried to kill me to keep it secret." The silence that followed was heavier than any courtroom I'd ever been in. Mrs. Johnson whispered. "She said she was helping us." I couldn't meet her eyes. "She was killing you slowly," I said. I didn't stay for applause or thanks. As the agents led Rebecca away, she looked at me, furious, defeated, and muttered, "Should have stuck to the lawn." Maybe she was right. If she had, 15 elderly people would still be taking fake vitamins thinking they were safe. But she called the cops on the wrong man, and in doing so, she exposed every sin she'd buried under that perfect green yard. Sometimes justice doesn't come from a badge or a courtroom. Sometimes it grows quietly like grass, pushing through every lie until it finally reaches the light.